Hey, Invigorate community, thanks for being here. Today's topic is fitting for Father's Day because we're going to be talking about parenting with autoimmune diseases. First, I'm your co host, Karin Wagner, and I'm joined by the amazing and fantastic Chris Burton. Chris, happy Father's Day and thanks for joining us.
Oh, that's always a joy, and thank you, and happy Father's Day to everyone celebrating. Thank you.
Today's episode is going to be really engaging and interesting because we have several questions from community members, all regarding all things parenting as it relates to autoimmune diseases, navigating the two, from deciding even whether you want kids to when you want kids, how to manage it all. How do we talk to them about these conditions?
Right.
So we'll get into all of those questions and more. But before we do that, Chris, can you share a little bit about your family and where you're at on your parenting journey?
Yeah, sure. So my wife and I, we have two boys, 9 and 7. I think of it as a sweet spot in parenting, right? So when they're born, especially if you're a first time parent, it's scary. You're just watching them, making sure like they're okay. You're figuring everything out. You're in a stage of like wishing that they came with the manual, but they don't. And so you're just learning alongside your partner or by yourself if that's your situation. And yeah, it really feels like a miracle that gets us to age one. And then there's another leap when they start like moving by themselves. And then once you talk about, oh, they're going to go to school. And now we're in this stage of like, my kids, for example, this summer are really excited about having responsibilities. We're not calling them chores. That's bad marketing. We call them responsibilities, right? And so they're really eager. Thankfully, my boys are the kind that are eager to help. Like they love helping, and so being able to sort of prove that they're big kids. So everything from like I went to walk the dog earlier, they walked with me. My younger son said the dog's thirsty, and he fed the dog some water. So it's like different things that you can now really trust them with, and it feels really awesome to be able to trust them, and that they still want to very much hang out. Because from what I've heard from my friends who have teenage kids, this doesn't always last, right? They kind of end up doing their own thing, which is ultimately healthy, but you kind of feel a bit of the loss.
Yeah, yeah. So you have two boys, 9 and 7. Are you in your journey with lupus as it relates to kind of their ages and when they came into this world?
Yeah. So, my sons were, let's see, 1 and 2.5 when I had my last flare up. And so I remember we were hoping to have my youngest son christened um, at our home church at the time. And I was talking to the pastor, but keep pushing it back because I was in the hospital for 3 months. And then I remember one of those like milestones was I want to make it out in time for his birthday, for him turning 1, and I didn't. I was still in the hospital when he turned 1, and I just remember that being such a huge source among many other sources of frustration, but just like chief among them was the sense of like I'm not going to be there for his first birthday. It's made me so angry, and I know that in order to help manage everything, thankfully, we were still living in New York at the time, so my wife was able to, get help from my aunts and my uncles and my cousins and other family members, my friends, uh, from various stages of my life, high school, college, and elementary school, even just like we're able to all help with, all the different support that you need when you have young children, and so that was a huge part of it was them coming up and seeing me in the hospital, not fully understanding how could you understand much of what's going on at 2.5 or 1 years old. Um, and I remember one moment that really stayed with me was my older son just when I got back home, just with his little body having so much frustration and just, and it came out as like anger, and he just was like punching in my arm, and with all his might. This was like for a hit or 2.5 years, like little haymakers that he was setting for him, and then he just burst into tears, and I just held. And I don't know how I knew. I was like, this boy needs to get this frustration he has out, but um, I just remember him just feeling, or at least as best as he could, communicating this deep sense of frustration, not understanding what was going on, but knowing that he did like it. So
He missed
that's
his,
he misses that, right?
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That's really it.
And whether he, I mean, being that young, he probably didn't understand
Right.
the space you were in, or even that you're sick, but they feel emotions and could
Yeah.
feel all that from that network
No
around
question.
you.
No question. No question. And I feel like they were my rehab nurses because, I think about my thankfully I've only had two flare ups. But my first flare up, you know, um my wife and I were newlyweds, no kids yet. And so I was just like home on the couch, and like the like goal would be like to walk to like the kitchen or like, walk to the bathroom, stuff like that. But with the boys, even though in some respect this flare was more severe than the first one, in some respects, I remember feeling this sense of like I need to get moving faster because the boys in their ages, like it made me feel like I had to keep up with them. Like they still want to be held, they still want to be picked up. But I left that hospital. I'll never forget this. Like a visiting nurse, um, who was helping with rehab, had me put my arms up, and she just tapped my arm. My arm fell back down to my side, and she wasn't hitting my arm with a lot of effort. And she told me, "Mr. Burton, you have the strength of an 80-year-old man right now." And I was newly 30, like just turned 30, that previous August. And I remember, in spite of that, my kids want to be held, right? They don't understand the word recovery. Like, there's no explaining that to children that young. And I think by the time I was able to go back to work in June 2018, I think in large part that was because of the amount of effort that just being a parent required to exert. Like you want to you mentioned about it, like the springtime walk with your kids. You want to be able to even play with them. It's going to take you like building up the sort of strength and shaking off the atrophy and building the muscles in your body that you don't even think about if you're in a healthy place.
So this, that story of you being in the hospital and missing your son's birthday leads us into I think an important question one of our members has is, how do you deal with those times, whether it's because you're hospitalized or you're in bed because you're whatever, doesn't matter. How do you deal with those times when you feel like you're missing out of your family or whatever is around you? And how do you stay engaged with your family when you can't be there 100% of the time?
Yeah, yeah. No, this is really few questions. Um, I think number one, it requires a sense of understanding on everyone's part, right? So I have no doubt there are people who have support systems that still need to grow in their understanding of what's going on, right? So they're still disappointed. So, for example, let's say there's a big celebration coming up, and you say to me, Chris, oh, the celebration's coming up. We want you to be there. It's possible because of the nature of lupus, because of the nature of fatigue. Well, we have good and bad days that I will want to be there, but I may not know that I can be there definitively. I can't tell you like, oh, I'll be there, guarantee it. Like I won't feel comfortable saying that Or I may even just be so excited. I was like, oh yeah, I'm looking forward to a RSVP. And then the day of, I can't move. Right? That's not impossible with lupus, right? That's something that, you know, thousands of millions of us can relate to. And so it takes a support system that understands that's part of it. This sort of like unpredictable nature is a part of the journey and not take it personally. If I say to you, oh, it could be something like small, like, oh, we're gonna go to dinner later tonight, and then I reach back out to you, like I'm talking to you, and my time is 4 o'clock, and then I reach out to you 7 o'clock, and I say, actually, Karen, I can't make it. It takes a support system knowing that I'm not just being flaky. I'm not just saying like, oh, I don't feel like it. I'm not just being unreliable in this sort of like regular way of like someone just changing their mind. That I may not feel like going into, oh, like exactly what hurts, the specifics of it, but I'm going through something, and you should know me better than think I'm just like flipping the script or just, dropping this as if it's not important and hanging out with you is not important. So I say all that to say it really takes a lot of understanding on your support system side, but also understanding on the side of you as the lupus warrior, you as a person going through the autoimmune disorder, that you're not just saying, oh man, I'm letting everyone down. I'm going to beat myself up. No, it's really important to be kind to yourself. Y'all have heard me say this before. Like this whole journey requires a sort of loving posture towards yourself that if you don't have, you're gonna hate yourself. You're gonna wish you were who you were before this disorder. You're gonna wish you were who you were before the diagnosis. You can't be that person. But guess what? There are things about you now that are better than it was then. So you don't want to trade that in either. So just really be kind to yourself and understanding toward yourself, and be in a community, educate the people in your community so that they understand. This is what I'm saying. I'm not just flaking out on you. This is what I'm saying. I think that's sort of understanding education is key.
So, competing that with the family, have you been in a situation where your boys have been old enough to remember and have a conversation with you where there's been a time where you haven't been able to attend or do something that you thought you could have?
Yeah, yeah. I think for example, it being summertime now, like my boys love going to the pool. Like they love swim time. And I love it too. It's fun, right? But at the same time, with lupus specifically, the sun is not always our friend. Right? I love summertime. I love the sunshine. I don't like cloudy days as much, but I've learned to appreciate a little bit of cloud cover, a little bit of overcast. Like, wow, I can actually function. I'm not going to pay for this 2 days from now. I'm not going to pay for this tomorrow when I'm trying to wake up. And my body's like, we're not ready, you know? And so those times where, my kids are being, I'm grateful that they're active and they want to say, like, you said we're going to go to outside. I'm like, yeah, I know I said that. And I meant it. Well, right now, my body's not cooperating. So we're going to have to do that later. And it's still frustrating. I thought they're still children, but they are more understanding than I could imagine if I didn't have this knowledge that's changing my mind.
I think acknowledging where they're at and it's like, yeah, this isn't fair. None of this is fair. And as soon as you realize life's not fair, the better. All good.
That's it. And there's something about doing that in a way that doesn't make them adults before their time. Because I'm not looking to my 9 year old or my 7 year old to give me the same sort of understanding I expect from my wife or expect from other adults. Like the kids being frustrated is appropriate for their age. The kids because they like were to burst into tears, but I said you can't play with water balloons today. If they were to burst into tears, that's age appropriate. I understand, right? It's not something that they're doing necessarily out of like malice or manipulation. I think sometimes we as the ones who are living with the disease can get frustrated with the whole sense of like, I just need people to be understanding. I think that's generally true and a reasonable request, but I can't expect kids to always be reasonable. That just seems
Mhm.
inappropriate.
Wholeheartedly agree. And to add on to that point, it's uh a lot of times they just want you there. You don't have to be. Yesterday we were leaving my older son's baseball game, and he's like, I'll race you to the car. My running, I don't know if you can really call it running with a fused ankle and two knee
You're
replacement.
moving, but it's not the same.
No,
But
not at all. I'm not going to run, but I'll time you. And then he took off running and he was pumped
right, right.
and
And you're
still
talking those
engaged.
modifications, right? Like you didn't say no. We're both walking. That doesn't make sense.
Right.
But you found a way that you can still participate in the activities, and you still got the energy out there you need. Because these kids are teeming with energy. You know what I mean? Like you
Right.
can power whole cities off the energy that little kids have spent. You know, like so it's important to honor that.
For sure. Being flexible in those moments. We've talked a lot about creativity on this show, and with parenting, one of the most critical skills you can develop
Of
as you
course.
go through this is how can I just spin this to make it a little bit easier
Yeah.
for me in the situation?
I think the ways in which we're able to, this be clear with ourselves, um, give clear expectations to kids and young people. I think it just makes the whole thing a little bit easier. Just yeah, like I said, realistic expectations.
Is looking into this episode and
Mm-hmm.
some of the things that psychologists and therapists bring up when raising kids well in a navigating these autoimmune diseases is mentioned it earlier about giving your kids responsibility.
Yeah.
They want to help. Even us with these diseases, we can feel like we don't have a lot of control. Things can change very rapidly. And kids are the same way. So giving something that they can do can help them feel like they're contributing and they're helping the situation. So one of the examples I came across is even if you're in the hospital, have them color you pictures, or if they like to sing, or my oldest really likes to chat, if you can have a conversation, like what a mood lifter. So getting them involved in any way can really help.
I love that. I love that. And I think it also just really helps to assure them because I think in the midst of it, it's really easy as the person going through it, as a patient to go through it and just really just kind of focus on this. But understand that, and I really believe this, Karen, is like as scary as it is to go through these things, these flare ups, these hospitalizations, I think it's even scarier to watch it happen to someone we care about, especially if you're watching it happen to your parent, and you're a kid and you don't have all the information. The doctor is updating you and be like, Mr. Jones is they're not doing that to a 9-year-old type, like 14-year-old. Like that's not happening. So it's a scary time for them, and being able to be present as best as you can given the circumstances that's really important.
You can use like your doctors in your care to help reassure them. A lot of times they'll be like, I have really good doctors taking care of me. They know what they're doing. I'm in good hands. This is just part of the process and getting better. And just giving that little bit of information is enough to be like, okay, I'm not promising that everything's going to be grand when I come out of this because
Right.
sometimes you don't know,
You don't know.
but you can say right now you're in good care.
Each day to be its own day, right? So I think there's a desire just among all of us, but particularly when it's kids to sort of like collapse the time. My kids are always talking about when I'm a teenager, right? And so I can imagine that in a moment of crisis, there's a sense of like collapsing time. Like when you get out of this, when you get better, we're gonna and there's a part of that that's really just trying to, jump past the scary thing. But if you can find beautiful moments in each day with the kids, and obviously there gonna be some days where you may not even really be able to speak, but you can just hold their hand. You can, let them, if allowed, sit on your hospital bed with their iPad or whatever, or with their book or with their drawing, whatever it is. But just being present with them as best as you can. Um, it's something that's just really, uh, as you said, reassuring.
Think that is probably the single reason why I have leaned so far into working on myself, the self development and
Yeah.
growth, because I realize that I can tell them whatever I want, but
Mm-hmm.
they're mirror images of us.
There it is.
So if I'm going to teach them to be the people that I'm wanting them to be, I have to live and breathe it every
Mm-hmm.
day.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a good thing, right?
Yeah.
Like you were talking about earlier, and getting your muscle back and building your strength. And it gives you such motivation.
I can't emphasize enough. Like it gives you a reason to get your stuff together. Like I think
Right.
if it was just us and our own, so I pick time, like, okay, I might get back to the gym, I might get back to eating healthy, no, but like now you have an opportunity to model that goal for yourself and for someone else. Like someone watching the way you eat and trying to figure out the whole world based off of how you move through. So I think it's an opportunity for us to really always have like an accountability partner.
Yeah. And staying present in that moment is, there's no more accountability than that. I want to bring up one of these this other community members questions, because I think this is, well, it's a common question every parent has. It's so important for us with autoimmune diseases to eat clean, to eat as healthy as we can. But how do we start adopting a more nutritious diet with really picky kids? Maybe kids only eat mac and cheese and pizza.
Mm-hmm.
How are you doing this?
You
Or
asked the right person. So, so I'm laughing because the other day my wife and I were on a shopping mall. I just got these two giant celery stalks, and I was like, this peanut butter, and I found like a vegan ranch dressing. Now the vegan ranch dressing, it still has like a good amount of fat in the ranch dressing. It's not like a fat free one, but I was like, at least this way I know my kid who like denies his lactose intolerance or dairy intolerance will not have an excuse there. He loves ranch, while like ranch don't love you. And so I'm gonna get you something that actually is gonna be kind to you. And it's really the thing about like I try not to make it feel like rules. Because I think if I say to you, you can't have bacon or you can't have this and you can't have that, kids hear that as when I'm old enough, I'm going to have. Right? So if I focus like you can't have this, and like when I'm old enough, the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna have this. Right? I get my driver's license, I'm gonna drive to the store and buy this. And instead we really focus on how like delicious fruits are, or how great it is to cook your own food. Like, oh, let's make our own sauce. Isn't it fun to make your own sauce? And so different things that turn it into a game, turn something to be enjoyed rather than a set of rules. Like we're still eating healthy together. Like I'm saying, oh, who could drink the most water today? Like that kind of stuff. Like, you're turning it something fun, but it's not feeling like you can't have soda or you can't have chips, you can't have that. Because you still have those things in moderation, but it's not a matter of like, I was just talking to a friend of mine at lunch today about for he and I growing up in the 90s, we never drank water. Like there was never in the winter, like my kids in their classmates will have these like giant water bottles bigger than their head, right? Like we never had that. We would have PE and be dehydrated. You get like a 2 second sip of water after you made the line, and the teacher said like move next, next. It was like less than an ounce of water flowing through your water fountain, and that was it. That was all you had. Like all our little kidneys worked, but we never got at anymore. We had milk at lunchtime. That was, and then like you drank so much soda back into so much juice and all this stuff. But now, really trying to focus on whole foods with my kids and making sure that it doesn't feel like punishment. It feels enjoyable. The food should be enjoyed, not like it's not like a punishment.
Very much bringing them along for the ride has
Yeah.
helped us. My little kids are checking out how much sugar and protein is on the back of.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
But you're not going to set junk food next to an apple and be like, pick, but maybe it's a green or a red apple, or do you want carrots or cucumbers or something? So just making them a part of it, I think, has been at least very helpful for us.
For sure. For sure. If they totally. And I think kids goes back to that whole sense of responsibility. They like being involved in that. Oh, guess how many grams of sugar? And they enjoy that kind of responsibility.
Yeah. One other question that we had was, how do you manage it all? And I think with each one of these stories and examples, it's adjusting the lifestyle to make it possible. So, like you said, cooking at home, maybe they can help cook at home. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
they're old enough where they can make a meal. By making it a habit to cook at home, it's just so much easier to regulate what's going in your body than going out
Absolutely.
all the time.
Right. 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 Yeah, and it can be something where they each have like their own task. Oh, I'm gonna be in charge of this. I'm gonna be in charge of that, and you're spending so much more quality time than picking on the '90s again. We sat in those chain restaurants, the Pizza Hut with our red cups, you know, and just it was fun. It was great, but like the quality time is hitting different when you're like actually home together. You can control all the different aspects of the time together. It just seems fun. It seems like a better path.
And that goes back to being present and engaged. You're creating memories in those
Mm-hmm.
moments.
Totally, totally.
It The day to day doesn't have to be ordinary, and we
No,
don't have to be loving every single moment of every single day. It's not crazy optimistic, positive,
mm-hmm.
rainbows and unicorns all the time, but there is something to be said about enjoying the everyday stuff
No question.
to live healthier.
No question. Yeah, you just gotta enjoy the days and just there's something I don't think we think enough about how those moments of quality time help lower our cortisol, help make us feel more relaxed and less stressed. So quality time actually like is a key component in the strategy for fighting the illness that you're fighting.
You're talking about cooking, and my favorite, especially with 9 and 7-year-old boys who have a ton of energy, getting outside and even going for a walk. And maybe they're riding bikes or something,
Yeah.
but just doing it together, it's
Mm-hmm.
like win-win. You're
Truly.
getting outside, you're getting some light movement in, and it's good family time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No losses. Just wins at that. Like it just really
Yeah.
um and I feel that I'm sure other parents can relate. You feel like the responsibility of the core memories being formed in real time. You know, like this is something. If you ever think about, oh, I still remember what it was, or what I was doing at age 9. I still remember what I was doing at age 7, and these things like have stayed with me. You're now in the place of helping someone got something in my throat, helping someone form those core memories too, and that's pretty amazing.
I do want to call out, so ironically, both of our sons are 9 and 7.
Yep.
So we haven't gotten to the teenage years. But when I was researching for this episode, I want to note that some of the things that can come up with a parent with autoimmune disease is they can just have some kind of tough reactions from feeling like they were had a different childhood
Sure.
because of a parent with a chronic condition maybe not being able to do as much or being a little different.
Right.
So, with that, I will just say they encourage you to seek out therapists
Mm-hmm.
and school counselors and local community resources to get some additional support
Right.
because that can be sometimes these teenagers just need a different outlet than their parents.
Of
So,
course. Of course. Yeah. And just, as you're describing it, Karen, it just sounds like a form of grief, like if you're someone who's like, I wish, my mom and my dad could have been out there playing catch with me all the time, or like, we could have played freeze tag or hide and go seek and all these things. But if your parent was really struggling, just like from rheumatoid arthritis or something, that's not something that they could have done successfully. It's just been anguish trying to like catch a ball, throw a ball with that kind of inflammation in your body. I can't imagine. But yeah, I think that is something where absolutely having conversation outside of your parents is really critical, because I can imagine that parent feeling defensive and feeling guilty and wanting to like, well, no, but remember we still did, we went to the amusement park or whatever. Like it doesn't, it's not coming from a fair place for anyone, because there's so much grief and so much pain involved. Like you almost need someone who didn't experience it to be able to listen to a trained professional who didn't experience it, who can help guide me in how to really deal with coping.
it reminds me of your little son just beating on you and
Yeah,
so frustrated.
right.
He didn't have the words to communicate. And well, and sometimes teenagers don't either. I
It's
mean, they're off
it's
just
true.
hiding. I know I did.
That's true. It's true. It's true.
But just, I think some of the sentiments are the same, acknowledging them where they're at
Yeah.
and being there, but just giving yourself that self love. It's this is the situation. It's
Hmm.
not you. Everyone processes this in their own way.
Yeah. That's it. That's it. And making sure, because I've had my kids will say things like, "I'm not trying to hurt your feelings. I'm not trying to like kind of qualify it, whatever they kind of say." Like letting it be a style of communication where people can say what they need to say, you know, and balancing that with the like, I'm not supposed to say any old thing that you gotta want to like cut you with my words, and so being able to incorporate therapy allows you to say exactly what you need to say, but not to the person who is going to hear that and fall apart, but to someone
Right.
who can like safely and like ethically hold that space for you, so that you're able to get that out of your system without burning down the forest that you have with your family.
Yeah. So, Chris, I saved this question for last because I
Okay.
think it'll come full circle.
Hmm.
Did you ever consider not having kids because of lupus?
That's a great question. Of course, it crosses your mind, right? To not have kids at all, because why would you want anyone to go through it? Like that's really the main thing is like, I don't want my kids to have to go through this, and of course, there's a part of me that's like, I don't want to have to bring someone into the world who I can't fully take care of, who I can't be available for in all those ways. So like all that stuff crosses your mind. There's no doubt about it. I think what especially at moments when in my journey I've been on medicines where they just did not know. And I asked my physicians, they did not know if this would cause like an effect on the child, like a birth defect, or um would it be difficult to become pregnant with a child, like die in the womb? Like these medicines are so strong. I had to ask those questions that some of these doctors did not know. But ultimately, I'm so glad that I had kids. I don't know. They're such a source of joy and such a light in the world. You know, just outside of like how they make me feel, I see how they're already in their young ages contributed to the world, and that's beautiful. So I'm glad they're here. Like there's no other, there's no doubt about it. When it's healthy, parenting becomes such a primary occupation, right? Like there's nothing I'm doing that's like more important than raising my kids. Like even as a minister, it's common for ministers to say our first ministry is at home. You know, like this is like you don't make this as I'm talking about these people and then like kids like are being neglected. So it's just such a joy in my life, and I'll say that in those moments in the hospital where I wasn't sure, I remember vividly telling my wife, um, I vividly remember telling her that on one day I said to her, the software, talking about like, you know, my soul, my emotions, like my will, like wants to be here. But my hardware, like my body is just so tired. And I was like, I don't know if the hardware can like hold up its end of the bargain. Like, I don't want to go anywhere. I just don't know if my body will allow me to stay. And I think if we have any say in like whether we get to keep on going or if today's our last day, I think knowing that I did not want to leave my wife with then, you know, a 2 year old or 2.5 year old and a 1 year old babies. And even now at 9 to 7 and probably forever they'll be my babies, right? There was no desire for me to leave them while they still like obviously like I like you know, you don't want your kids to ever go before you. But I did not want to leave them um when they still were on their way growing. Like, you know, if I'm gone and you know they're in their 30s, 40s, 50s, whatever age it ends up being, um, that's one thing. Painful, sure, but like they're able to, you know, provide for themselves and it'll be okay overall. But at that age, I just didn't want that to be their story. I didn't want that for them. Like, see, so I say all that to say that it was something about seeing those kids that gave me a deeper reason for wanting to keep living. You know?
Mhm. I love the breakdown between the hardware and the software.
Yeah.
It's just because the mental game with this is just very, it's two different things that we're talking about here.
Mm-hmm.
And kids they have a unbelievable way of helping us get through our darkest times.
Yeah. That's the truth. That's the truth.
It's always bigger than us. You were talking earlier about how they're already going off and doing their thing
Mm-hmm.
in the world and they're contributing. They're wonderful human beings at 9 and 7.
Mm-hmm.
The world needs them.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
certainly hesitated. Do I do
Yeah.
this? And that would have been a disservice to not do that. That would have been tragic,
Truly.
like sad.
Truly. With you on that. With you on that. There's so many different traditions talk about how even if the world was ending, we still have a responsibility to plant a tree. And I know there's a lot of people at what's going on in the world, like I could never have a kid, or you know, and I'm not talking about people who like struggle to have kids. That's a completely different. Um, talking about folks who just say, oh, I can't do this, or even folks in our community like I can't do this. But there's something beautiful and hopeful about watching the beauty that children provide the world mature and develop. And you know, I have an iPhone, so I'll get like the memories from like, you know, 2019 or something. And that's, you know, we're recording this 5 years ago. That's not that long ago, but so much life has happened, you know. And so it really, for me at least, it tells me to just like slow down and appreciate each day, because you know, someone said to me when my kid turned 9, "Oh, he's halfway out the house." I was like, "Don't you say that." I got mad, right? Because I was like, "Don't say that to me." But it's really about appreciating each day. Maybe that's how we're supposed to live in general. But I think with kids, it really underscores the point that you need to just appreciate every single day.
On that note, I think we got to wrap up because you don't top that, right? It was just such a nice bow. Chris, happy Father's Day. Thank you for being here. I hope you have a wonderful day. And to everyone out there, please like and share. I hope you all have a wonderful Father's Day, and we will be back soon. Chris, anything else you want to add?
Well, yeah, just happy Father's Day to all the fathers, all the folks celebrating that. And as always, Karen, thank you for this. I really, I wish this podcast existed when I first was diagnosed. Like this is such a tremendous and all the work you do is invigorate. I just want to say that on the record. Like this is such a wonderful service to the world. So thank you.
Means more than you know. Thanks.
But,
All right, community, take care of yourselves.